Then.
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay.
So welcome everyone to the holiday edition of Relationship R&R. I'm Robin D'Angelo. I'm a marriage and family therapist here in Laguna Hills, California. And I'm just about an hour and a half north of San Diego and an hour and a half south of LA. So I'm kind of smack dab in the middle. And it's really been my passion to work with couples and all things relationship related. So I also work with individuals and just really teaching people how to have just epic relationships. And it's easier than we think. So I'm just so happy to be here. And I'm so happy to have these beautiful, wonderful colleagues to be here too. And so that we can answer all of your questions. We'll do as much as we can in our 1 hour. And we're just excited. Rebecca, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Robin.
Sure.
So I'm Rebecca Wong, and I am a relationship therapist based in New Paltz, New York, which is about an hour and a half north of Manhattan. I work mostly with parenting couples, and my specialty is what I call connectfulness, but it's basically teaching families, couples, individuals how to slow down and really playfully reconnect with the most important people in their lives.
Yay.
And we have a special guest with us today.
We do have a special guest, and I just want to read just a little bit something. I want to introduce Mercedes Samudio. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She's also a parent coach, and she's been working with families for years, helping them to achieve results in developing the dynamic parent-child relationships, as well as ending the shame around parenting, and giving parents confidence to raise healthy children in today's world. So she's the leading parenting expert certified in nonviolent parenting and attachment parenting, which is huge. She's been, oh my gosh, this woman's amazing. She's been featured in Huffington Post, the New Social Worker magazine, Daily Parent, Parenting OC magazine, and Kids in the House. So this is Mercedes Samudio. We want to just welcome her. And if you want to find out more about her, we'll be sprinkling these in along the way too. Her website is theparentingskill.com. So that's theparentingskill.com. Mercedes, say hello.
Hey, I was reading that. I was like, that person sounds cool. Who is that?
We know her. We like this woman. So
thanks
welcome.
guys for inviting me too. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here, especially, as the parent coach expert. So we are so happy to have you here to be able to share your expertise with everyone who's listening and watching.
Hey.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do you think? You guys want to just kind of jump in and I'll start reading off some questions, and then if we have some popping up along the way, we can get those too.
I think that sounds great. I know we have a few to start with, and I just want to invite those that are with us here today to go ahead and write your questions in, because we're going to try to get to as many of you as we can within the hour.
Awesome. Perfect. So I'm going to start off with this one. Let's see. It says, my husband always tends to drink more than I would like at family events. I'm dreading what he might say because he often starts teasing me in front of my family. How can I deal with this in the moment and potentially head off the situation?
So what I love about this question is that there's already insight and foresight into what the conflict around the holidays may be.
Right.
I think that that's just a great place for couples to start, because it invites a conversation before the event, so that they can sit down together and say, okay, so this is the thing I'm scared of. This is the thing I'm afraid of. How do you want to deal with this? Let's create our own plan.
Right. I love that. And what you're doing is you're talking about they're creating it together. You said, yes. How do we create this? And it's not just you do this and you embarrass me and I'm worried about how you ... It's how are we going to do this?
Yeah. So what happens then when you start in having that conversation together is that you automatically create this plan where you're on the same page. And then when you get to the event, and when maybe it doesn't even happen because he already knows what you're afraid of, but if it does happen, you have this plan about how you can negotiate that and what you can do.
Yeah, I love that. And I see, it says Renee over here said something about, taking, when you have something that you need to handle conflicts around the holidays, is go have a spa day.
Together beforehand.
Yeah, and then tackle the issue another time, but not now. I love self-care, especially before you're about to head into probably a pretty heavy conversation. I mean, when you bring in things like drinking and alcohol, and then what is that? That's uncertainty, right?
Yep.
So creating that conversation with your partner around that, absolutely self-care first, take care of you first, so that you are able to kind of start that conversation.
Totally. Something else that just kind of popped into my head is, why do we tend to drink more around holidays and family events? Right?
Yeah.
So much of it has to do with the discomfort and the uncomfortable stuff and the anxieties, the social anxieties, all of that stuff that we're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
So, yeah. What are some other ways that we can help soothe each other?
Right.
The self-care is a great tip. I love that. Thank you, Renee.
I know. I love that too. What do you think, Mercedes? You have anything on this one?
Yeah, I think, again, I come from like that family perspective, and I think sometimes families can, like Rebecca was saying, like it can be really uncomfortable to be around our families, especially because we spend most of the year away from some of those people. And then the holidays kind of forces us to be around them for different periods of time. So I think, and again, I'm not the couples expert, but as a family person, I think one of the things is to really talk about those things with your families. I actually tell my parents to say, if the kids don't like certain cousins, or if the kids don't like, certain people, to have a game plan about what they can do when we get to that cousin's house or we get to that person's house. So that way everyone kind of knows, okay, I already know that Robin doesn't like Rebecca, so I'm not going to tell Robin to go into Rebecca's room to play when I already know that they're not getting along, And I think, again, like I said, just talking about it before and being really honest about what I think about certain family members, again, in a respectful way, but being honest about that. So you kind of have a game plan before you go to that relative's house or before those relatives come over, can help with that too.
Fantastic. Game plan, a family game plan.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to jump on to another one. It says, my mother passed away recently, and for the first time ever, I'm dreading the holidays. I'm the oldest woman in the family now, though I'm only in my early 30s. I have my own little ones to think about, but I just know I'm going to go in there worrying about my role and how to show up. Can you help me get out of my own way? Wow. Just that question. Can you help me get out of my own way?
Yeah.
I mean, you can sense almost the despair and just the sadness in that. So I'm going to throw it out to one of you guys who would like to kind of tackle this.
Mercedes, you're nodding. Do you want to start?
Yeah, look at her.
It's funny. I was just listening, so I was like, wow, that's really it's really deep, I think. And again, I think it goes back to what I said about the holidays. It kind of forces us to be around people when we're not always ready to. And I think some of the things that, when I talk to my families about the holidays, we talk about what does that bring up for us, whether it's grief because someone actually passed on, or whether it's grief because I've lost people and lost relationships. So I think it's really important for us to not try to get out of our own way during the holidays, but to just be honest with ourselves and say the holidays bring up so much for me. It's so hard to be around family members, or to, if you have a certain role for most of the year that you got really, succinct and heartfelt, and who you are, getting around family sometimes makes you feel like, oh, they're going to not understand that role. They're not going to understand who I am. And I'm going to have to convince them that I'm this person now. And that brings up a lot of anxiety. So I just think it's really important for us to get really honest and get the support we need. If it's not inside of our family, to do it again before the holidays, talk to somebody if I need to get that support. So that way I know who I am going into whatever that family situation may be.
I love that. I love being able to say, hey, this is where I'm at with this.
Yeah.
I think that brings up another issue of how comfortable are you with, or are we with, getting vulnerable with our family members? Because that takes so much courage to be able to say, number one, this is where I'm at right now. And I'm really struggling with this. And I'm struggling with my role as not only the oldest woman, but I'm a mom. And how do I be strong and still be empathetic and show my kids this is grief, and it's okay to grieve over the loss? And do we share this with our family? So it creates even more questions. And how do we empower ourselves or our family members to just share with us, where are we at and how can we support you?
Yeah. I think another key piece is when we've lost a family member, when someone has died, we hold their memories. And we also have a lot of rituals and things that we did with them in their lives, things that we can continue to do even when they're not around anymore. And especially in regards to this particular question, this mother who is filling this new role of being kind of the family matriarch, how can she create new rituals for her family that her kids can pass down, that can be part of living that legacy?
Right. And what an honor to be able to do that, right? And what it can be actually a memorializing ritual, something that your kids can say, gosh, this was the first Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, this was the first time that we, didn't have her here to celebrate, but mom made it so special still.
Right.
I love that. I'm just wondering if anyone else, kind of watching and listening has any questions. I really, encourage you guys to type those in on the side. We'd love to be able to answer those live. So thank you everyone for, who's here and making comments. We just really appreciate it. So I see a lot of people, saying, yes, it's not easy this time of year. It's so special for family, even when we have lost a family member. So thank you guys. Ernesto, thank you. And Brian, this is great.
Yeah. I agree too that I think the holidays brings up a lot of grief, like whether you've lost someone or not. I think just there's a lot of grief around the holidays, and I think it's really important. And I see Brian saying that just to give a space for grief. And I think it's really important for us to understand that grief doesn't always mean we've lost a physical person, but there's a lot of loss of our, like, again, this woman's role, that wasn't her role before. And so now she has to step up, and that may take some anxiety and some grief for her to deal with, not just the loss of a significant other in her life or a significant person in life, but now she's got to kind of take on that role that she didn't have to do before. So I think it's really important, like you were saying earlier, Robin, about really understanding that, grief it really is something that we have to give space for. And we really have to give people that space to say, you know what, can I be vulnerable with my family? Can I tell them what's going on? Can I do that? And how do I create that during the holidays?
For sure. And how do I not find myself, going back to the first question about someone drinking too much, like how do I make sure that I am taking adequate care of myself and I'm not turning to alcohol or food, which is a really tough one this time of year, right? When we get triggered, when we get upset and we want to, what we hear so often, numb those really difficult emotions. How do we do that without eating so much, right? Or drinking? So these are all really great things to start asking yourself and planning ahead.
Exactly.
Planning ahead. So, okay, I'm going to jump on to the next question. It says, what if you can't let go of infidelity and your spouse won't talk about it? Yeah, yikes is right, Ernesto. This is a heavy one. I mean, anytime the topic of infidelity comes up, I mean, it's like taboo, or it's like nails on a chalkboard for people, or it's so intimately connected to a story that you have of your own or someone who's really close to you. Infidelity is hard. It's so hard. So, what if I can't let go of infidelity and my spouse won't talk about it?
Robin, something that comes up for me whenever couples come in here and they start talking about infidelity is that what infidelity is it's a betrayal. But we feel betrayed and are betraying others in so many different ways, in so many different aspects of our relationships. So sometimes there's infidelity in a relationship, but there's been a lot of other betrayals that have happened before that.
Right.
And sometimes that's the thing that couples struggle with, is that they're focused on the infidelity, but no one's ever looking at the relationship as a whole in terms of making that whole relationship safe. What things happened that triggered the relationship to feel unsafe?
Right.
In the first place. And that's the stuff that we kind of have to hold a space for and help couples feel safe around again, because that's where we can have the conversations. If we're not feeling safe, we're not going to talk about the things that make us feel unsafe.
Absolutely. So creating that emotional safety, as some of us like to call that environment of, no matter what, I can trust that my partner will have my back and that will be here no matter how hard a conversation is, no matter what happens that we have to go through together. I trust that they're going to be here. So this woman or male, I don't know for sure, is asking, what happens when my partner won't talk about it? this is key, right? So
Yeah.
what's happening to create this resistance, this, nope, I'm not going to talk about it? What's going on?
Well, that partner obviously isn't feeling safe. They're already feeling shut down. They're saying, I'm not having these conversations with you because something in here just is too triggering.
Yep. I don't feel safe. I do not feel safe that I can talk to you about my fears. I don't feel like I can talk to you about, you know, when there's been any kind of betrayal, we have some probably pretty nasty thoughts that go on in our mind toward that person, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes we even have a sense of guilt for feeling so badly towards our partner, even though they've hurt us tremendously. Mm-hmm. So what do you think, as far like Mercedes, when we're talking about like creating this environment of safety, you know, whether it's within couples, friends, families, like what would you say, you know, would be some helping points for this person, how they can start maybe talking about this? What do you think?
Again, I'll really reiterate, I'm not the couples expert, right? But when I'm looking
at relationships in general, right?
But I think one of the hardest things about talking about sensitive issues like that is that, yes, there needs to be a safe space. And I really like that you kind of brought up that idea that there needs to be some type of safety there, that when I share my, you know, feelings and emotions, and when you share yours, we're not going to use it against each other. We're not going to fight. We're not going to tell each other, well, see, I knew this is how you thought. We're not going to get into that. And I think it's really sometimes really difficult because our emotions are involved. So when I'm talking to parents about it, you know, when kids lie, which is kind of the parent equivalent of infidelity, right? When kids lie, they don't tell the right thing. I always tell parents to really have this space where the kid can actually tell you why they lied, what was their motivation, and what result did they think they were going to get out of that lie, to really understand that whole thought process. Because again, in my understanding, I feel like infidelity is the same idea. Why did I do it? You know, what was my motivation for it? And what did I think was the result I was going to get out of it? And I think that if we can have that space for it, then we can realize, wow, my kid lied because they wanted money, you know, and so that's why they did that. And so now that I understand they have this need to have more money, I can start talking to them about finances. I can start talking to them about how to deal with money, and we can start dealing with some of those more conversations instead of just focusing on that behavior of my kid lying or not telling me the truth.
Right. So and what I'm hearing is like, let's just set it up with kind of some low expectations, low pressure of, we just need to understand what happened, or how did we get to this place? We, and constantly using this language of we, and where do we want to go? I love what you said is like, what do we hope to accomplish by having this conversation? And I think there's space for partners to say, I'm not sure, other than I want to have this conversation, other than I'm in so much pain, but it's almost even more painful that you will not connect with me on this, and that you're completely shutting me out, because that's just one more betrayal on top of what's happened.
Agreed.
Right?
Definitely.
So do you want to add anything to that, Rebecca?
I'm wishing I had my headphones right now because I'm having a little trouble hearing everything.
Okay. So. Let me, I'm going to hop over to, let's see. Was this a question? I can't tell. I'm still getting to it.
Brian had a question up there.
That's what it is. Okay. So it's, what do you recommend couples do to prepare for difficult conversations?
I love this question. So I think in terms of preparing for difficult conversations, it has a lot to do with where you meet each other. You know, it has to do with the headspace that you're both in around having these conversations. How do you make each other feel safe? How do you keep yourself calm? Right? Because so much of a difficult conversation is how we're talking to each other. We know that there are a few things that couples do. If we quickly kind of go over the 4 horsemen, the Gottman 4 horsemen, right, Robin?
Yes.
Do you want to take that one? I know you're the Gottman.
Yeah, sure.
Here. So maybe we should set that up and then kind of come back into the conversation.
Yeah. So real quick, there's 4, what they call them, the relationship killers. And it's 4 ways that we talk to our partners, really talk to anyone. This can go for any relationship you have. And it's the 4 kind of relationship killers. The first one is criticism. So that's when you are basically attacking your partner's character. That can look like when we use words like always and never. You always do this. How come you never do this? Or that's when you're basically name calling. You're such a fill in the blank, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's defensiveness. So this is obviously typically if we receive a criticism, this is our defending of ourselves. Yeah. And defensiveness doesn't necessarily have to come when there's actually been a criticism or a judgment. Because oftentimes when people feel a lot of shame, they get defensive all the time because they're hearing these messages from a place of I'm inadequate and I'm not enough. So anytime they hear maybe a tough conversation or something even neutral, they could get defensive. Yeah. And then there's contempt. Again, we're talking about the 4 horsemen, the 4 relationship killers. Contempt. So this is kind of a tough one. This is like resentments. When resentments have built up over time, we are contemptuous, right? This is when we look at our partners and if they say something that bothers us, or we're just in this space of everything they say drives us crazy and we can't stand them, maybe that's rolling our eyes at what they say. Maybe we're scoffing at them like, God, are you serious? When we are contemptuous, it's when we hold ourselves higher than them. And oftentimes our messages to them, whether it's verbal or physical, is, are you kidding me? What's wrong with you? How stupid can you be? And it's really breaking someone down psychologically. This, again, the number one predictor of divorce when you're not addressing that. And then the last one is something called stonewalling. And this is basically when you stop a conversation, either in the middle of it, before it starts, because it's too big for you and you're choosing not to go there. So that's like if you're in conflict with someone, say you're on the phone and maybe they're being nasty or you feel it starting to elevate, you hang up. I'm done. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm choosing to end this conversation. Another one that couples see a lot is, yes, dear, fine, whatever you want. That's stonewalling. Mm-hmm. That fine shuts off the conversation immediately. So again, those are just the 4, relationship killers when it comes to conversation. Again, it's criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. So
but there's a medicine for that. There's a medicine for each of these things. And so the antidotes to these horsemen, to these relationship killers, are using a gentle startup.
Yes.
Taking responsibility, even if you're just taking a small iota of responsibility for the littlest thing that your partner or whoever said that you did. Talking about what you need, what you are feeling, right? Not saying what I need from you is, but saying this is what I need.
Yes. By the way, that language is huge. This is what I would love if you could do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
And then the last one is soothing yourself, taking care of yourself, taking care of your emotions. Mm-hmm. Because if you can't do that, I like to call this the air mask on the airplane, right? Yes. When the cabin pressure drops and those air masks drop down, you have to put on your own mask before you can help somebody else and put on theirs. Yeah. So if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to help anybody else. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't have a conversation with somebody else. You can't talk about the hard things. So these are the things that really help difficult conversations happen. But then there's another element. And I like to call that element, it's like a listening thing, right?
Yeah.
If we have to learn how to tune in, none of us really do this, myself included.
I know.
Right? We forget that often when we're having a conversation with somebody else, the biggest thing that we can do, the biggest skill that we can all hone is listening. Because we all listen with this ear of, how am I going to respond to that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Instead of really allowing that other opinion or thought or feeling to come in and influence us, for us to really feel it.
Right.
Right? Because what would change if we did that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How do you think that knowing that there's going to be a difficult conversation, right? How do we prepare ourselves, or maybe try to prepare our partners to really show up with that new listening ear? Yeah. Because that's hard. That's so hard, right?
It takes practice.
Mm-hmm.
I like to call it relationship mindfulness.
I love
because
that.
It's really about being mindful of showing up in that way, to really make it a conscious practice, to show up in a softer way, where you talk about your own needs, where you take some responsibility, where you take responsibility for soothing yourself, and where you're really trying to hear and listen to one another.
What do you know, I think about how this can definitely show up in families, Mercedes, and
Always.
I think about, right? And I think about how do you, I mean, difficult conversations, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that maybe you share with some of your parents on how to either get it started, how to, you know, how to maintain a difficult conversation and not lose your cool?
Right. Well, it's interesting because the Four Horsemen it's an interesting thing that it's geared towards couples, because I was listening to that and I'm like, those are also issues in families where it really breaks down communication too. When, you know, families get, you know, defensive with each other, or they become contemptuous or resentful of each other, it really changes how we communicate and how they communicate. One of the things that I really like to start with families who have like little to no communication skills is to start family meetings. To start having them once a week, no matter how hard they are, no matter how much everyone's moaning and groaning, because I think it creates a space where we can all talk about what's going on and there's no judgment. So I help families figure out how to create a family meeting where it's just talking. No one has to make a solution at that time. No one has to come up with any advice at that time. And for a lot of times, you'd be surprised how many parents would be like, oh, my kids are not going to like that. My husband's not going to come. And everybody shows up and everybody is ready to talk about how hard it is to live, to be a sibling, to be, you know, to work outside of the home, to go to school. And you realize that it's not just the internal stuff that the parent usually who calls me thinks it was. It's all this stuff. It's all this environmental stuff that's been going on, and everyone comes home and dumps it on each other, you know? So it's something that I really like to give my families and tell them that when some of those things come up, when everyone's rolling their eyes at each other, when no one can stand each other, start to have family meetings, because I can guarantee with at least 90% accuracy that it's probably not you guys, it's some environmental stuff that no one has, you know, no one can talk about, and everyone's just bringing it here and they're throwing it at each other. You know, so
yeah,
that's really I talk to about that.
I love that. I love having like a structured, you know, one night a week, or, you know, I try to ask my couples every night at the end of the day, you know, if there's kids, when they're tucked in, if you can just take 15 minutes and do either like a State of the Union meeting with your partner, or something where you already know you have 15 minutes carved out of time for you guys. So that maybe is a time to say, hey, I've got a difficult situation or conversation I want to have with you. Let's try to do that in the next 2 nights. Right. So maybe it just takes preparing. Maybe it just takes taking off the pressure by saying this doesn't have to happen today, number one, and we don't have to solve something.
Exactly. That's actually a technique in strategic family therapy where you actually schedule arguments, and like you schedule them. So you schedule these discussions and you say, you know, we're going to talk about X or Y tomorrow, next week at the family meeting and things like that. And I think with devices, you know, all my families are learning how to bring devices in. I actually have them put it on their schedules. Like everyone, if you guys all have an iCalendar, you all have Google Calendar, invite everybody and do it like kind of an invitation where I'm inviting you to come. Here's an invitation, say yes. I told one mom to actually print out invitations and give them to everybody, slide them under everybody's doors, and make this like a real family thing, because you know, when we come together and we talk about these things, and we don't say we have to figure it out tonight, we say let's start talking about it, let's begin this discussion. It gives everyone this kind of like, okay, we don't have to figure it out tonight, okay? You know, it's kind of nice, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I
have couples who schedule holidays to fight.
Nice.
You know, that way they're kind of putting it together. They know that's the intent, to kind of go and discharge that energy.
Right.
And it doesn't take over the rest of their lives.
Scheduling it. Yeah. Well, I see a question over here, WGP7110, and I think he's hopping off, but I do want to acknowledge it. Says, how do I prepare myself this year for the holidays when I'll be alone? I was just going to immerse myself in work.
Yeah.
Oh, this is such a great one.
It is a great question.
And you're so not alone in this.
No, not at all.
Holidays can be a really lonely period of time for people who aren't with family or in relationships. You know, I think one of the things that everybody can do more of, whether you're with a family or you're in relationship or you're by yourself, is focus on the self-care. And immersing yourself in work isn't always self-care. So what might that be, right? Whether it's doing more exercise, taking baths, going to an awesome movie, having some tea with friends, getting a massage, whatever self-care means to you.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I had a session just before this Blab where I was talking to a couple, and one of the members of the couple, we needed to focus on some self-care tools.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started by talking about the things that this person likes to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Likes taking baths, likes essential oils. We started talking about the things they just in general like. And we made a whole list. It was like 20 items long. And we talked about how to incorporate that stuff as their self-care. Instead of introducing and adding new things, we just started with the things that they already enjoy in their life.
That's fantastic. That's perfect. I think too, when this person says, I planned on immersing myself in work, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. If this person loves what they do and it kind of re-energizes them, great, right? And then there's ideas of, well, are there, do I want to connect with people, but I just don't have family of my own to connect with? Can I go find other families to connect with? I know lots of people have what they call Friendsgiving, right? Thanksgiving just with their friends.
Yeah.
I know some people like to go out and volunteer in their communities. Does giving back, does that make you feel like you're connecting to others? Is that filling that part of you that you're saying, like in that question, it specifically said, how do I prepare for this?
Yeah.
That right there says the magnitude of being alone during holidays for this person.
Right.
So how do you prepare? Yeah. I love that.
And I was going to add too, one of the things that I think is really interesting to me too, especially when I'm talking with families in general, is what we, and in our culture, especially, I'm not sure where you are, WGP, but in our culture, we put so much, stress and pressure on what the holidays means. And I think what's really important is to really start our own traditions. So I actually teach parents how to start their own traditions. If it's not about gifts, if it's not about food or trees or all those things, start something that's cool. Like I know one family that I worked with in the past says they actually they bypass all that family stuff and they go somewhere on Thanksgiving, on Christmas and New Year's, they go somewhere. If they want to hang out with family, they'll do it before the holidays, because it puts too much stress on them to have to get here, get there, put the baby in the car seat, all those things. It's like, let's just go, be gone during the holidays, and then we come back and we'll visit with people after all that stress. So I think really giving yourself permission to say the holidays are typically like this, but for me, I'm going to do this during the holidays. I'm going to, go on a trip with myself. Or if I want to work on Thanksgiving but decide to go somewhere for Christmas, I'm going to do that, and not hold yourself to those common traditional family dinner, turkey, tree, all those things that our society and our culture tells us are really important. We can say, no, it's not important to me and my family. It's not important to me. I'm going to do something different. So I guess the idea is to give yourself permission to do something different, not do what everyone is telling you to do,
Right. And like Ernesto says, go to Vegas, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Create your Vegas. What is your Vegas if it's not being around family, or whatever it is, creating your own ideas. I love that.
Go to Vegas,
okay. So funny. Okay. I'm going to read another question. It says, how do you stay connected with your partner amidst all the craziness? Like when you can't get a minute alone because you're crashing with the family for Christmas.
How do you stay connected with your partner amidst the craziness when you can't get a minute alone?
Yeah. Yes.
Is that the essence of the question?
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like too, like you're actually staying with family. So you don't even have your own space to go maybe home to, go back to. So it's family.
Yep.
How do we stay connected?
This is what I call the little moment stuff.
Yeah.
This is where you create your own retreats in like seconds, not necessarily even having to physically remove yourself, but it's those moments where you just lock eyes with one another and the rest of the world kind of slows down and isn't there. Yeah. So how do you carve out more of those moments? And I like to say that this takes practice, right? This is the type of stuff that always goes better when you're doing it at multiple places in your life, when you're not just kind of trying to put it into practice in the middle of this event. But it's little things like holding each other's hands, scruffling each other's hair, just being there, glancing at each other from across the room and catching that smile.
Right. Right. This
Right?
is something that the Gottmans talk a lot about too, with like the emotional bank account, right?
Right.
So when you have this emotional
that.
bank account, so you're doing deposits all the time, deposits of everything that's positive, like you talked about, the little moments. Those are emotional deposits into that bank account. And so you're filling that bank account up, filling it up over time, so that when you do run into these moments where either you can't connect just because of the nature of the situation, right? Where you're staying maybe at your in-laws' house or family house and you feel maybe a little awkward about connecting, you've got that bank account there so that you're good. Those moments don't feel as negative of an impact on your relationship, but it's more where you can almost look at each other and laugh and say, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see you again in 3 days when we get home, right?
Right.
But I think a big piece of that also is being able to tune into those little moments, knowing that they're there because they're so easily missed.
Agreed.
Right. So I think it comes with, having a conversation ahead of time, right?
Yes.
Like you said, not just in the midst of, a fight and thinking, God, this is why things are so hard. We keep missing each other.
Right.
But it's when things are great and you can look at each other and maybe you're sitting on the couch watching a silly YouTube videos and just cracking up because you just totally dig this person. And you just look at them and say, this should be one of our code words when we're just want to be silly. What do you think? And they can come up that organically. And so then you can throw them out when you're at Aunt May's house for Thanksgiving or whatever.
I think it's interesting though, because I was listening to this and I'm like, hey, me and my husband do that. So we have, one of the things that I think is really interesting too about relationships is that people have to find their own thing. So sometimes those looks or those touches aren't it, but for me and my husband, it's humor. So we have
humor.
I don't even know, like a stockpile of Marvel cinematic movie quotes and inside jokes where when anything happens, we'll just talk to each other and no one else knows the quote because no one else has seen the movies as much as we have, but we'll say it and it's always, and no one, everyone's looking at us like, what? But it's our own thing, like you guys were saying about that emotional bank account where it's like, we have these things where we can just joke, have an inside joke, have something where we both know what it is.
Yes.
Amidst all the family people kind of going in between and hustling and bustling and calling us here or there. So I really appreciate that. And I feel like, yes, we're doing that.
What do you guys think about the necessity, if you can, to actually create, I don't know if I made this up or if I heard this somewhere, but pattern interrupts, right? So we get stuck in these patterns of, okay, you got the kids or you got the dog and I'm going to be making dinner and I'm going to be taking care of the cousins who are checking in. But actually creating pattern interrupts where it's like, all right, time out, get over here. I just need a 10-second hug, right? I need to feel you against me right now, or I need to just put my hands on, I need to physically connect with you. We need to throw a wrench in this craziness that's happening and create this pattern interrupt. So it actually kind of recalibrates our brain to say, whoa, 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 in the midst of all this chaos, I'm still here for you.
This is something we do in my house a lot. Like we do these pause moments. And whether we're giving each other hugs or kisses, my girls we have 2 young girls, they apparently witnessed my husband and I doing the 6-second kiss quite often, that now they try to do it to us.
Perfect.
And that's basically just a kiss that lasts for 6 seconds. So it lingers and it creates a pause and a connection. But there's other things that we do a lot of, We tell knock-knock jokes. We get really silly with each other. We have staring contests, right? Even like a thumb war.
Totally.
Right? They're like little silly ways of just kind of coming back to each other. They make a really big difference. And especially when we're like in overwhelm and we have lots of family around us and lots of other people. If we can find each other and have a thumb war with each other, it changes everything.
And it does. It does. And I see another question over here. I'm going to read this out to you guys. It says, and this is all along the same vein, so this is great. Yeah. Can you speak to the value of creating rituals and traditions for your family, be it conventional or unconventional ones?
Yeah.
I feel like all 3 of us could talk for days on the value of this.
Yes.
But Mercedes, I want to kind of give you the stage here.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's really important about rituals is that everybody in the family is on board with it. Sometimes what I see sometimes is parents will create rituals that kids are like, oh, I don't want that. And kids will create rituals where parents are like, we don't want to do that. So I think it's really important that we all sit down and really talk about, number one, who are we? So I talk about families creating their own family mission. Who are we? What kind of family are we? And then also coming up with things that we can do as a family that it's not too boring or too drawn out or spending too much time together. So like even simple things such as I'll tell parents to find a group game on their phones or on their devices and do that, or to find movies that they all enjoy liking. So just really simple things that you can do together that it's not so hokey, because I know sometimes kids, they get older, it starts to feel really hokey and like, I don't want to do this, but to really honor each other, to really say, I honor you as my son, my daughter, my mom, my dad, all those things that you're doing, whether they be conventional or unconventional. It's really important for you all to sit down and say, what do we like doing? What do we enjoy doing? Let's go through some of the memories as you guys were growing up. What did we do together? Did you guys like the Disneyland trip? Did you guys like the movies? Did you guys like going to the water park or, going ice skating if you're in a part of the country where you can do that? But whatever it is, number one, figure it out together. And then number two, which is the really huge one, don't be afraid to readjust it as the kids get older, as everyone kind of changes. Because I think what happens is parents are like, oh, my kids grew up and they used to love going to Disneyland. Well, now they're 15 and 16 and Disneyland's a little kiddie for them. So really talk about, okay, now you guys are a little bit older. What do you guys want to do? Who are we now? Also, as parents get older, their energy wanes. They don't want to be running around all day doing stuff. So really just being okay with saying, all right, we've all grown up. We've all moved on. What do you want to do now? Who are we now? So to answer that question, I think the overall thing about rituals and creating them is they're very valuable first. So to answer that part of it, but then to also say that it's something that's always evolving with you and your family. What might work this year, as everyone changes and as things happen, we might have to, reevaluate if they're going to work next year or the year before or the year after that.
Right. And I can imagine that would give different family members like a sense of importance too, that, oh, mom and dad care what we want to do next year. We get a say in who we are as a family. It's not just like this dictatorship, right? It's not just you're going to do this because this is what we do every year, but to actually ask for input from the kids too. That kind of gives a voice, right? And I think growing up, what that can do too is it passes down generationally, right? So it makes it okay to then, well, I can ask my kids going forward, what do you guys want to do this year? Something else that I thought of when you said that, Mercedes, talking about what did you guys like? Oftentimes, I don't think parents ever really, you don't actually get a, hey guys, thanks so much for taking us to Disneyland. That was one of my favorite trips ever. Or this was so much fun. How often do you actually get the appreciation? You see it in their actions, but that's kind of a way for your kids to say, great job. You guys kicked ass.
Thanks. Exactly.
So, all right. Let me see. Let's move on to another question. Okay. It says, how do you handle the holidays when you and your partner have differing views on how they should be celebrated? More specifically, my partner hates Thanksgiving because of the false story that we're taught about it. I agree with them on that point. Hold on. But I do love it because of the memories that my family, with my family, and expressions of gratitude.
So I think this is beautiful because I think this is, it kind of hits back to the last question a little bit. But the thing is that it also teaches us that we have to make it ours. It's not about what we're taught. It's not about how, it could be about how we grow up, but because in relationships and in partnerships, we're talking about more than one person. So you all come into the relationship with different stories. How do you make it your joint story? How do you make it something that works for both of you and that you can feel good about? Thanksgiving doesn't have to be about pilgrims and Indians, right? But what does it have to be about? What is the thing that it feels good about for your family? If you're going to take part in it, how do you make it into something that you can kind of sink your teeth into and make it into something that feels good?
Right. And how do you do that while still respecting your partner's maybe discomfort with something? And how do you do that while honoring first of all, the courage they had to say that to you, right? Which is like, hey, I know traditionally and socially it's the norm that we probably go out and get a turkey and or whatever it is for Thanksgiving, but I don't want to do that. So first and foremost, I think kind of going back to one of our original questions about creating that emotional space, or the emotional safety, so that our partners, number one, feel like they can talk to you about this and be honest, and that they know no matter what, again, no matter how hard things get, you guys are in this together.
Yep.
And sometimes just saying that to your partner, which is, I don't agree, but we're in this together. So let's figure out a way that we can do this so it feels good. Like you said, Rebecca, it feels good to both of us. And how do we do that?
Yeah.
Trying to see if we have any other questions that are coming in too. All of you guys that are here, thank you so much for being here with us. And if you have any questions, it looks like we're getting to about 15 minutes left. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to type them in and we will do our best to get to those.
This is such a fun platform though. I just kind of want to acknowledge that I'm really glad we switched over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is really fun.
And it kind of goes to the whole idea of, taking courageous action. Holidays, and we're talking about family stuff that takes courage, and hopefully not, liquid courage and not turning too much to alcohol or food. But, this was a courageous step for us as, Relationship R&R. And Mercedes, thank you so much too for coming here. It's the unknown. And I just want to highlight that because with the holidays coming up, there's going to be so much uncertainty.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
So much uncertainty.
So much uncertainty. And as long as we know that and we can acknowledge that and just talk to our partners, our kids even, to talk about traveling, right? It's probably going to be kind of tough in airports or cars, like whatever it is, and just getting real.
Grocery
just getting real with them. Grocery stores, right. People are going to maybe get not so nice.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I think what it does is it creates a wonderful conversation to have with kids and couples to say, what are our family values?
Yes.
When we see these things happening, maybe at the store where, it's Black Friday's coming up and people are going to be out of their minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having a conversation ahead of time, if you do decide to participate in that and maybe kids are there or whatever, it's like, let's talk about how do we act? What do we want our family to be known for? Is it kind and loving even when things get really rough?
Yeah.
Or are we going over to a family member's house that we know that Uncle Jerry gets, a little bit, throws back a little bit too much eggnog, and just having those conversations ahead of time, I think, is so important, and it takes off a ton of pressure.
It really does.
Right?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that one of the things that I really stress with my families is to not be so anxious around the holidays, not just to not do it, but to really think about some of the things you were saying, which is, who is my family? What are our values? What do we love? What do we hate? What do we really enjoy doing? What do we really wish we didn't have to do? And to really be vulnerable with each other and to talk about it. I think, when you talk about the holidays, you talk about grocery stores trying to get everything ready for dinner, trying to do the Black Friday stuff. I ask parents, what does that all mean to you? Does it mean anything? And a lot of my parents say, it really doesn't. I'm just doing it because I'm going over so-and-so's house or so-and-such in the other's house. So I actually have been talking to parents since the beginning of November about how to prepare yourselves for it.
Yeah.
Saying, don't wait till the last minute to do all of it. Say, go the first week of November, get the food, have it in the house. And that way, that's one less thing you have to deal with. Or if you want to get the different toys on sale and things like that, stay at home and do it from online, really think about, how can I make this less stressful for me? I don't have to be out there hustling and bustling just because of the holiday spirit. You don't have to do that. You can really say, what do I need? What do I like? If you like being out there, then go out there and do it. But if you're like, I really hate this, please say, you know what, do I have to? Do I have to drag my kids to the store knowing that we're going to be in these obscene long lines, watching them cry and have tantrums? Do I have to do that? Or no, I really don't have to. How can I make this really easy on myself? So I really asked my parents to do that. And I've actually been talking to them about it since the beginning of November, where it's like, this is holiday season, guys. Let's really talk about how this is going to look for us.
That's so smart.
I often talk about simplifying, especially around the holidays, because one of the most important things about the holidays is that we create memories.
Yes.
And we don't create memories out of stuff. We create memories out of experiences and time spent together, right? So to create that environment where we can enjoy the togetherness,
right,
and we're not stressed out by it, that's the stuff that's going to create the memories.
Agreed.
Something else that's kind of coming up that I was just thinking about too, how important it is to feel like you have your partner's support when you think things might get a little bit rough. Like you already know, and I'll, give an example. I'm getting ready to go with my husband to be with his family. And one of the family members said, oh, tell Robin to get ready. We're getting up early for shopping on Black Friday. And my husband knows how much I love to shop. Not really, do not love shopping, let alone, the craziness of that. So we had a conversation, right? And it's about, do you have my back? Can you have my back and gently say to your family, not coming from me, but in that moment, like, yeah, that's totally not Robin's thing, but I'll let her have at it. But
right.
Can you set that up ahead of time with your partner and just say, we already know XYZ is probably going to happen. Can we please be on the same page? And can you have my back in this way in particular? Because if you just ask for support and you're not like explicit in what you need from your partner, you could end up missing each other, and then you end up feeling even more disappointed and let down. So having that explicit conversation of, all right, babe, I need your back on that. I need you to have my back on this.
I agree. I think it works with the kids
having
too.
those moments ahead of time where you can sit down and really connect over what are those important pieces where you need each other's support.
Yes.
So that you can even plan that stuff ahead of time a little bit.
Planning is great. Planning is wonderful. And we talk about this, as
I'm like planning
about, like we plan, we have to put sex on the calendar. We have to put, date night on the calendar. Yeah. We have to put our nights out with our friends on the calendar. Planning is okay, especially the busier we get. And the more important it is to make sure not to let our relationships get neglected, because I see relationships as like a living being, right? It's they're kind of like children. If you neglect them, they will throw a tantrum. They will get your attention in the worst ways possible. Yeah. And by then it's too late and you just have to let the meltdown happen.
Yep.
What were you going to say?
But meltdowns aren't all bad.
No, they're not.
Right?
They're real.
In a meltdown, it's really like hold on a minute, let's pause and take a look at what's really important. So if we look at the meltdowns or the conflicts or the fights as an opportunity to like slow it all down and reconnect, then it's not so scary anymore. Just like a kid's tantrum.
Yeah.
But Robin, something you said a second ago about the planning being so important.
Yeah.
I think in our like over-connected, over-busy world, one of the things we don't do enough is scheduling in the everyday routine stuff like laundry or changing the sheets, right?
Yes.
And when we don't get those things done, our lives don't feel good.
Nope.
So those are just important. Scheduling sex is important, but so is things like making sure that we can get grocery shopping or that we can fill up the car with gas. Like putting those things on the schedule too helps us get everything done and doesn't overfill our schedule with all the extra stuff that gets in the way.
Right. And I wonder too how important it is to actually include your partner or your kids in that. Like, all right, honey, grocery shopping at 5:30 today. Can you meet me? And can we just go together? We'll throw on our like sweats and be cash. And it may sound silly, but you can have some pretty awesome conversations with your partner going down, the frozen aisle at the grocery store. Moments of connection. I mean, they can come from anywhere, and it's kind of however you create them. But so we're kind of getting towards the end. So I wanted to check in with either of you guys if you had any other questions that you saw come through, or
we do have another question here from Ernesto. What's the most unique or strange or creative holiday ritual that we've ever heard of?
Nice. I think the one that I shared earlier was the most creative and unique one, where that family just decided that they weren't going to do family time, and they decided that during the holidays they were going to take trips. They were going to go somewhere as a family and not deal with everyone else. I really love that because I think, again, going back to those traditional, you have to be with family, you have to be at someone's house, you got to open gifts on Christmas morning. They were like, nope, we're not doing any of that. We're leaving, but we'll see them before and we'll see them after. And I love that because they were like, that's too stressful for us. It makes our kids cranky. It makes us cranky. It makes a relationship fall apart. We're out. And I was like, hey, you know what? I might do that too. I love it.
Right. Next year, that's what I'm going to do. Thank you. Or this year. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if this is so much strange, but just something my husband and I have decided to do the last couple years is we are morning people and we get hungry really early. So we decided every Christmas morning we wake up at like 3 or 4 a.m. and we go to like Denny's or whatever the 24-hour breakfast place is. Nice. And we eat whatever we want. And we stay there and just gorge ourselves. And that's kind of our Christmas present to each other. We just love it. And yeah, and that's just a little silly ritual that we have. What about you?
Love it.
Do you have one, or have you heard of one recently?
You know, I'm feeling like I can't figure this one out right now. I know I have a lot of weird, crazy little rituals that my own family does. I've heard a lot of different ones from couples, but I'm having trouble picking one out right now. So I'm just gonna.
Maybe that's inspiration to pick a new one this year and share with us.
I think I may do that this year. I think actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my children pick it out.
Oh, that's
so I'm going to go back to the kids and I'm going to ask them to create a ritual. They're really good at that kind of stuff anyway. Yeah. So cool. I'll let them create something and see if it sticks.
I love it.
Awesome. Okay, so we're kind of wrapping up. I just want to thank everyone for being here. This has been so much fun. Rebecca and I obviously love Blab as a platform now, so you will definitely be seeing more of us.
Yay.
This is such, this is a lot of rich conversation and rich content. So we're glad that you guys were here to kind of help contribute to that. And it's because of you guys that we did this. We were getting great questions, and we just want to make sure that, you know, if you found out about us another way, we'll go ahead and we'll put a link in here in a minute that you can sign up and just get on our list, our mailing list, and we can let you know when we do Blabs in the future. We like to send out, you know, different resources sometimes kind of based on the things we talk about. This one was a little bit more general, but, you know, we did talk about like the 4 horsemen. If you missed that, you know, we can send out little links and give you guys information. So we can do that on the replay. Anything else you guys want to share with everyone?
I'll just share, thank you guys for inviting me to be a part of this one. I really appreciate it. I've done a few Blabs, and so it's a really fun platform, and I'm excited to see you guys, you know, use it and be a part of you guys' Blabs as an audience member next time and see how it goes.
Yeah, we're just so honored to have you be here with us, Mercedes. Yeah. So thank you so much. You know, having all of your, you know, your expertise as the parent coach. It's been, you know, absolutely delightful to have you here. And I've learned so much from you just, you know, gosh, just from an hour of having you on here. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mercedes. I'm really glad that you agreed to join us today.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any other, you know, want to find out more about us, you're welcome to check us out. We do have a Facebook group that you guys can check out. It's just Facebook, and then it's
Facebook page.
Not group. Sorry.
Yeah. Maybe we should think about a group. I know, but we don't have one right now.
No page. So that you guys can find us, Relationship R&R. And again, you know, we'll send out the replay, and we're just so glad to have you guys here. And if you guys want to contact me directly, you know, my website is www.counselinglaguna.hills.com. And Rebecca, do you want to give yours as well?
Yeah, my website is connectfulness.com. That's CONNECTFULNESS.com.
Perfect. And Mercedes?
I'm theparentingskill.com, TheParentingskill.com.
The easiest thing to do would probably just be to follow us on Twitter, since all of our little names are up here though, right? And then you can find us from there.
Yes. Perfect. So thank you guys all for being here, and keep an eye out. We're going to obviously be doing a lot more Blabs as, you know, as the time goes on, and as the new year starts. I think that's going to be a perfect time to for have you guys check in and hang out with us.
Yay. Yeah. And I'm just wondering if we have our